All right, sure. This is episode 74.
Five.
Jeez, man.
Yep,
Jeez.
we've been doing this for a bit.
Yeah, gosh.
Hot minute.
Yeah.
All right.
You got to be on our Hot 100 episode.
She has to be on the 100th episode. She's what is this, your third episode right now?
Yo, what's going on, everybody? You're checking it out. It's Spence from the Highly Advised Podcast. This is episode 75. I'm here with one of my good friends, the Tribal Chief, Big Cozy, Too Cozy. He's not here right now, but he will be back in return. So what we have today is one of the best regulars we have. We're bringing the crackhead energy like we always have anytime she steps in the building, anytime she's on the Zoom link, anytime she's on the Highly Advised Podcast. One of the Highly Advised affiliates, Kathleen. What's going on? How's it going today? Episode 75. How does it feel?
Yo. What's up? At first, I was tired. I had like that girl kind of weekend where I was just like recuperating, having like a healthy routine kind of vibe, get up at a set time, exercise, make, meal prep. That was my type of vibe. And then I got on here and then it's all like, let's bring it, let's work, let's do it. And yeah.
I hear that. It's like, just ready to go. Just put me in the game, coach.
Right.
That's ready for the week.
Right. That's crazy because that's like spot on what just happened today, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, that's what's up. How you feeling yourself, Nigel?
I'm not doing so bad. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty good, just chilling out. Amigos and compadre, down one compadre, but it's all good. He'll be back at one point in time, but we have another compadre that we don't have on the show too often. So I'm pretty happy. It's been a good weekend. You know what I mean? I can't complain too much. How about you, Spence? How are you feeling?
I can't complain, man. I'm doing pretty good. As you know, I'm traveling. I'm a traveling man. I'm back on the road again.
Just tell them where you were.
Dang.
Hey.
Come on, just tell them where you were, man. Come on.
I like the anticipation though.
Yeah, I'm a traveler, man. I gotta catch flights. I'm a world wanderer. So
world traveler.
Exactly. So yes. I found myself coming back home just to come visit some of the guys from the Highly Advised Podcast. So I decided to come back. Well, I decided to come back home to see some of my compadres, some of the family, some of the clan, some of the tribal leaders.
Oh, shoot.
The tribal chief, i.e. Big Cozy, Too Cozy. Shout outs to him. Shout outs to Gil. Shout outs to Nigel. Shout outs to Andy. Shout outs to Kathleen.
Hey.
Had a good chance. I've been back home. I'm enjoying myself. It's a breath of fresh air, absorbing the sun. So I can't complain. To say all that, I say that I can't complain. I'm just glad to be back. I'm glad that the listeners are here. And also, actually, one thing I do need the listeners to do, and I probably say this every week, so you should know it by now.
I'm ready.
To make me feel better, to make us feel better, the podcast feel better, they need to go check us out on social medias. So I would tell them first, if you want to see the video, because I'm sure you like the voice that you're hearing and hearing all of us talk about stuff every week, check out YouTube at the Highly Advised Podcast. Or if you want to hear our tweets about what we got to talk about, whether it's events, Summer Madness, UFC, whatever's happening in the world in real time.
Ask us something.
Huh?
Ask us something.
That's exactly. Exactly.
Talk to us.
Engage.
Exactly. Ask us, hit us up, like, comment, subscribe. If you got an opinion that we haven't talked about, tweet us at the Advised Highly, at Advised Highly on Twitter. Or if you want to, even if you don't feel like tweeting, you got an Instagram and you rather just say, yo, let me slide in your DM, slide to the Instagram page, which is the Highly Advised Podcast, where you can hop in the DM, comment on the pictures, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see. Because trust me, we're here for y'all. Because, like we said before, this is the cross section of MMA and hip hop.
So I got a question real quick. Well, actually, one more thing the listeners should do before they do anything else. They should also follow Kathleen. Where can they follow you at?
Miss_So_Clean. I also have a YouTube channel. I am going to Vegas once again in another week. So I'm going to be posting a travel vlog. It's going to be all Vegas content. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Vegas.
Yeah, yes. That's going to be fun.
That's what's up. I'm glad to hear that. You know what I mean? So now that we've got you back on the show, we essentially have the first highly advised, affiliate, I guess, moment at the moment. You had something that you wanted to bring to our attention. I'm curious. I don't know many details about the story, so I know you're going to enlighten us as to what's going on.
Okay, so it's the Gabby Petito murder. I a little bit lost interest, not gonna lie, because I was so consumed, obsessed. Talk to me freaking 5 days ago. I was like all over it. Now I'm just like, okay, another day, another dollar. So
okay.
It's crazy.
So what because I'm not familiar with it.
It's all over the news.
Yeah, I've been seeing it, but
it's been like a really bit. Like I said, I've been traveling the world, so like I haven't had a chance. I've been looking at itineraries, not the news this week. So
I feel you.
What ended up happening? Just to inform me or the listeners that aren't familiar with it.
Okay, so it's all over CNN. I'm all things pop culture, like all things juicy controversy stories, controversial. So a beginning. So hold on, let me remember. There we go. A couple. They decided to move cross country, and they decided to do like the van life kind of situation.
Okay, so they were like a traveling couple, just
nomadic.
Got you. Okay, tiny house type shit.
Yes,
got you.
They've been on the road for 4 to 5 months already, and they started a YouTube vlog. More like the girl started the YouTube vlog.
Okay.
And she was super duper passionate about it. And I feel like she was really pushing like to start the blog, but the guy was just like, whatever, it's going to happen. And he also didn't believe in it. They had an encounter with the police because somebody called the police because they were stuck in the middle, like on the side of the road in Utah.
Okay.
And they had like a fight. And
the couple.
She had like an OCD moment in the morning because she wanted to like organize all her stuff and everything. And then like, fix the bed because they live in such like a small confined like space.
Right.
And then he was just like, kind of like he didn't really care about it as much. And then I guess like the blog thing came up. And I guess like that was like the tension between them because she wanted to live more fast paced. And I guess he wanted to like not live as fast.
Right. Just kind of take it. She was just trying, like in his mind, she was doing too much.
And because he would always tell her like to chill. So then it gave her anxiety. So I really do feel like she was like irking him a little bit. And then she took the wheel supposedly and like moved the wheel while they were driving. And then they ended up on the side of the road. And that's when the cops came. So then once the cops like kind of determined that after like talking to them and everything, they were going to press charges on Gabby Petito for domestic violence. Yeah. So that means that they had, some tension
there
already.
There was some history.
Right.
There's some history and it's already like all over the internet and everything. So a few weeks later, Gabby goes missing and the boyfriend, because they were living in Florida with his parents, goes back to Florida without Gabby.
Oh, you got an answer for that, man.
So they went out to Utah with Gabby.
No, they were cross country.
Without Gabby.
Yeah. With Gabby originally.
Okay, so my understanding is they were from New York, decided to quit their jobs. 4 months they've traveled across the country. They end up like in Utah or somewhere in the Midwest.
Yes.
End up having a dispute because in his mind, Shorty's doing too much with the blogging. Cops get called. He decides to go back home because you said they're living with his grandmother, his mother in Florida. But this time, when they go back, Gabby's not there.
Right.
So like, I mean, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't just leave with your wife and not show up without your wife when you come back. You know what I mean?
With no question.
Fiance.
That's a wrap.
So did they ask him where was she? And if so, what did he say?
He's not cooperating with the police whatsoever.
Oh God.
Oh, wow. So he did that.
Yeah, he did that. That's what that means. Like, he sounds guilty as hell. And if he's not guilty, I'm curious to find out what's going on.
That, and I feel like his parents are covering for him as well, because they're not cooperating with the police either. He's still alive, but just recently her body was, her autopsy was declared a homicide.
Yeah, no,
so they did. So they found the body and oh wow. So I don't really need to go into details of what type of but no.
The autopsy, the results haven't come out yet.
Oh, okay. They just know it is ruled homicide.
It's ruled homicide.
Oh wow, yeah. So this is definitely gonna be something interesting to watch unfold. Like, I don't know. That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. That reminds me of that one couple where I think the guy ended up dying or something like that. They were trying to, because they weren't getting enough views or something. So they were trying to do something extreme, and they ended up, I think the guy ended up dying trying to get like more views for a YouTube video. Completely different because it was on his own accord. But this is a crazy situation from what it sounds like.
I mean, the situation seems pretty black and white. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be one thing if this is your fiance. One, like, why wouldn't you want to cooperate with the police to at least find her if you didn't know what happened? You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't really have too much to say about it. I'm kind of curious to see what happens just because, you know, it's a interesting story. But I mean, like, at the same point in time, like, I always feel like couples like this, when things happen like this, it's just best to go your separate ways. He should have just took his ass back home. Without her, but with her alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, my bad, go.
I feel like they probably did break up. And I felt like maybe because she is young, she was like 22.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's 23. I don't know. This is just only speculation that like some people have to be in a relationship. So maybe she didn't take the news like all that great, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know.
Or it could be the other way around.
He didn't take it all that great.
Maybe she was like, yo, you're not supporting me. I'm trying to do this blog thing. You're a Debbie Downer. Once we get back home, I'm not doing this with you. And stuff like that does happen. It does happen. Either way, it's sad nonetheless, though.
100%.
Do you think there's any way that he didn't do it?
Well, it's also speculation because there's a couple in Utah that was also found dead. And then they did stop by the store. And supposedly, the rumor is that they had an altercation and maybe they killed that couple.
I was thinking that. I was like, what type of wild shit would they be? Like, they're like vlogging murderers. Like, geez, this situation sounds crazy. I'm interested now. I'm not going to lie. But it's a sad situation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's these murder mysteries.
Yeah, man. Listen, you want to talk about a good Lifetime drama. This definitely is one of those in the works because if they killed that other couple, if they did kill that other couple, more than likely she might have just been like, "Yeah, I'm telling on you when we get back home."
100%, yeah.
Yeah, it could be the case. It sounds like this is going to be crazy. It sounds like this is definitely something we got to keep our eyes on as it unfolds.
So I'm curious, you know, like with this couple. Do you think that he'll be able to actually go back? Let's say if he is found innocent, do you think he'll be able to get a job anywhere? They'll be able to see that on his background test?
No, because it's all over CNN. Everybody knows about this. Everybody.
Oh, okay. That's
and he's also
question. I'm tripping, y'all.
That, and also he is about to be arrested. They put an arrest warrant on him because when he went across country back to Florida, he committed fraud and he's not using his own credit cards either. So they're going to get him on that. And I think slowly but surely they're going to trap him with the murder because they haven't charged him with the murder yet.
They're gonna pin this murder on him. Like,
I feel like he's also stuck in the reserves in Florida. Like it's like the wilderness out there.
Right.
And that was where he was last found. And police has been like, they've been searching everywhere.
So he's on the run.
He's on the run.
Jesus.
Oh gosh. This story is going to just get even crazier then.
Well, I know that, you know, seeing as they'll be able to find anything on his background, the one thing they won't be finding on a lot of backgrounds are drug tests. Apparently, a lot of employers today in this day and age where they're looking for more employment from workers, they've been able to turn somewhat of a blind eye towards drug testing employees. What are your thoughts on that, you guys?
Personally, I think this is good. And I say that because there are plenty of people in this world that for whatever reason, they're able to complete their job. They're able to complete their job at the highest standard. And that's something they do recreationally. Now, hey, listen, the same way you're allowed to drink, like you can't drink before you go take a drug test either, because it shows up and you can also fail a drug test possibly, depending on the employer.
Right.
So like, I think it kind of just goes to the same sort of like, hey, whatever you do in your personal life is fine. As long as of course, companies always have their rules. If you're doing whatever drug and then you get caught up out there, you're probably going to lose your job. So it's, hey, whatever your business is, cool. But right now the world is in a shortage. I think they said it's like from what I read, I think it was like an article on Instagram. But from my understanding is that out of 400 some odd thousand employers across the world, around 9% so far, which is around like 44,000, around 4,000 employers so far have chosen to actually turn a blind eye to this. To me, I think this is good just because you just have people that wanted to do something, whether it's because of medical reasons or whatever. Now this won't stop them.
So in my opinion, right, I feel like that this is a good thing. Because I just think the way the world's moving, like I would be surprised that a lot of employees are still testing people in general, because it just seems to be like counterproductive. It seems like they would just lose money. There's a lot of places that are legalizing more drugs. And I think, different type of drugs. Now, I'm not assuming they want people to come in like off, hard drugs, crackhead energy type shit into their, workplaces. You know what I mean? But what I think they are, willing to turn a blind eye to is some of the more like recently legal type shit. So, I mean, like me personally, I think it's a good thing. And I think more employers are following behind this. I don't think this is the end at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the end also because it's like a shortage right now. Like the employers across the world are having a hard time finding people that want to work. Right. Or trying to just get jobs because of like the state of the economy globally due to the impact of like the pandemic. So I agree. I think this is like really great. I think it's really great in terms of like opening that door for those that, let's say you have a medical condition. Right. Let's say there's someone that's extremely bright, and I'll use MS for instance, because I remember Montel Jordan had it, right? Right. Or not Montel Jordan, Montel Williams. And I remember even watching an interview where he's just like, yo, I'm going to do this until the day I die because it's a medicine for me. Right. Now imagine a kid that's just as bright, might be a senior in college or just finished his training. He's doing whatever he's trying to do to get into this next space or next chapter of his life. But he has a medical condition where he needs to use, and I'm using cannabis. I'm not using any hard drug. I'm just using cannabis as an example. He uses cannabis as like, that's what doctors prefer him to use as his medical treatment. That means they're not eligible to get possibly to, in certain jobs, they may not be eligible to get hired just because they would fail that drug test. Now that alleviates people like that, I think, which is hugely beneficial.
Do you have any thoughts on this, Kathleen?
I just feel like if you are taking drugs and you have to hide it, the more you want to take more drugs and the more you become addicted and the more it becomes a problem.
So you think it's just like mental strain?
100%. Yeah. That's another, aspect of it.
That's true though. That's a good point, because it's a lot of times because you're hiding something that you're doing. You want to do it more, or, as soon as I do this, I could go do this or whatever. It's like, I don't want to use cheating or something as an example, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like, like you'll have someone that drinks quietly. They'll probably drink more because they're like, I can't wait. They're chasing to get that drink versus, I can just go to a bar, have a drink, go home and call it a night. So
I think it really all depends. I think that a lot of people they're going to see it as being like some radical shit where it's like, now they're going to start doing whatever in the workplace. But I don't think it has to be that way. I think, that's
close-minded if they do think that way. Then we just struck a chord.
Hey, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, as closed-minded. I don't think I don't see it being one of those things where like I feel as though like if you're sneaking and geeking, yeah, it's gonna be a problem. But I don't think any. I see it as this. No one, anybody with common sense knows, hey, I'm not going to do drugs at my job. Now, if they do random drug testing at the job based off like a window of like a couple days or whatever, then you got something to answer for. But
so with the new regime of, laws and things coming in every day, with, drug tests and things like that, one thing that's also on the rise today is cryptocurrency. And people think there's a lot of speculation that cryptocurrency will essentially be the new currency for the future. Now, I've been paying attention to cryptocurrency. There's things like Ethereum, Cardano, other cryptocurrencies that are relatively known that people are saying will be the new infrastructure for the background of society. But it's kind of interesting to see as the whole crypto debate is going on. So I was curious to hear what y'all thought about it.
To me, I think it's interesting. I did see AMC put out a tweet earlier this week, earlier last week about actually allowing Dogecoin as a way of currency just to go buy film, go to the movie theaters. So I mean, I think it has this place. I just think it's the biggest concern is about regulation and how to actually regulate this coin. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to cryptocurrency, where it will retire the dollar at some point, which I wouldn't be surprised because I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but anytime you go shopping today, you have more often than not, stores are saying either you have to have exact change or you need to pay with a card.
I know that.
Yeah, like there's a lot of big box stores, I'll say, just across the board, retail, in different areas of retail and even like grocery stores where people are saying, yo, either you have to have exact change because there's a coin shortage.
I did hear about that. What's going on with that?
It's been something that's been happening for a while, I think, since kind of somewhat near the beginning of the pandemic, where I guess because there's so many people now that are home, because a lot of times everybody's always working. So only a handful of people are really using cash. But now that we're living in a time where there's a pandemic, cash is pretty much king to some people. People are using too much cash, or there's just not an influx of coins, long story short.
Right.
So they're not able to get as many coins out. So, which kind of goes to that whole that thought process they've had for probably a decade of retiring the penny. So I can see how this could be a transition. My biggest concern is just how to regulate it, because my understanding of cryptocurrency is every time you make an exchange, you have to pay tax for it. And that's my only issue, because then it's not the equivalent to $1. You know what I mean? I'm
not sure the ins and outs of the situation when it comes to being taxed on the actual exchanges with cryptocurrency. But I do know that it's interesting to see what's going on. I know that they do have different cryptocurrencies that are supposed to be US dollar stand-ins and different things for different fiat currencies. So it's kind of interesting to see as to how it's all playing out. I think that if that does happen, that'll be like way down the line. I do know certain cryptocurrencies have a little bit more stability than the dollar just because of it being so inflationary. But like at the same point in time, to say that we're going to move from the US dollar to essentially another form of currency in the form of the US dollar, because you would figure that a lot of other societies and whatnot and currencies from different places would have to switch as well. Which you already saw El Salvador, they're accepting Bitcoin for different transactions and whatnot. So I mean, like it's definitely some type of shift, but I'm not sure where it's going.
If people monitor how currency has been used digitally for a while in other countries, I think it won't be. It's just a regulation part, because I believe in Nigeria, and I saw this documentary a couple years ago, but long story short, like with over there, they use Nokia phones. So pretty much their currency is through text messages. So like I text you to get for currency, or even like I was looking at some wholesale spots out in China, and a lot of I'm not sure if it's called WePay or something like that, but there's like, it's a digital currency that you're using. but you're using it in place of cash, right? So it's really the regulation. Like you said, I think in terms of it replacing the US dollar, it's going to be, I think that it is going to take a time because it's going to take a while for countries to adjust to that.
Exactly.
But I think looking at other countries, it is very well possible that if you put, I think if anything, I wouldn't be surprised. Let me ask you this. How far do you think it is? How far-fetched do you think it would be if they just come up with a global standard currency?
Kathleen,
one world order. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Kathleen. You're good.
It seems like a one world order if they do, if it's going to be worldwide. And also, I have invested in cryptocurrency, but I just also feel like there's a divide when it comes to cryptocurrency. There's the people who are really familiar with it, and then the people who aren't. I mean, that's with all things.
Right.
And I just feel like the people who are familiar with it have a tendency to like shove the idea of cryptocurrency down people's throats. Like,
no, I see that sometimes. You're not lying.
And I'm just like, either I'm gonna do it or I'm not. Like, and then they just like, oh, well, you could become a millionaire if you use I forgot. Let me check this app. It's on my phone. It's
Coinbase.
It's Coinbase. Yeah, you know, I deleted it. That's how irrelevant it is. No offense.
Wow.
You're just not interested in it like that. It's not your thing.
I'm not. I mean, I gave it a chance. I saw the potential. There's a lot of work that has to be put into it, and I'm all about work, but it's just, I just feel like it is convenient, but the way, we don't know what direction it's going in because like the average person just uses their Apple Pay to pay for everything in their card. And then people have it's whatchamacallit, an opinion about using Apple Pay. Like, oh, it's you're bound to get scammed if you use Apple Pay. Freaking cryptocurrency to me is just like, that's a way I can get scammed too. Shoot.
Well, the way I see it is there's two things that, you got to follow in order to know where things are going with cryptocurrency. And that's big business and the government. And depending on how they feel about cryptocurrency is where everybody else is going to go. Because what they say is what we're going to have to do. So if the government decides to take on like Tether and they say like, hey, that's the US dollar equivalent, that's the US dollar equivalent. And we're not going to say no. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like at the end of the day, there's a lot of big businesses in the back end making deals with these cryptocurrency places. There was a report 2 weeks ago. It was a false report, but it said that Walmart had accepted Litecoin as a form of currency. And
I've seen that. Yeah.
The price for Litecoin shot up for like 2 hours. And then once they said, hey, this was a lie, it shot right back down. But all it's going to take is essentially for somebody to say, hey, this is a go, and we'll see where things are going to go.
Yeah, but see, I think that's to me, that's the issue, right? Because things like that, like having a finance background, I also understand like there's a thing called pumping and dumping, right? And typically that for listeners who aren't familiar with the pumping and dumping is typically people take penny stocks, which are typically less than $5, and they buy a big share of it, right? And then what they go out and do is incentivize other people. You can make money if you buy into this stock. The stock price shoots up. They sell their stock. And when they sell it, because it's a bulk share, the price drops. Everybody who bought in helped build the price up. The person who owned the most sold it. And when he sold his or her part, the price drops and everybody else loses money. And this situation is very similar when I think of like false information like that, right? Where imagine, or even like we look at just different people where they've made tweets or have some type of incentive or encouraging others to buy into a coin because they say it may be good. So, I mean, it's very interesting. I do think similar to what Kathleen said, like where you just never know how it can work, especially like when it comes to scamming, because like where I stay at, like the gas station, it has an ATM. Like there's Bitcoin ATMs, right? Or you can pay for your gas with Bitcoin. So it's finding its way in circulation. It's just like you said, like whatever they choose to make the dollar standard is going to be the dollar standard, and we won't have any question in it. It's just a matter of like who is going to be the big business that out of that big three, I would say, that will be our big five, that will actually say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And because as soon as they say that, that's when everybody else will probably fall in line. Because at the end of the day, the dollar rules all to some extent, or influences many, I'll say.
Influences a lot. Kathleen, did you have anything else to say?
That too. I just feel like the direction we're at now, it's crazy because I feel like where I live isn't really, it's like a step back in time. I feel like I'm in the 1980s, and I'm really surprised that there's just a lot of places that do accept Bitcoin as currency, even though, okay, y'all accept this as currency, but y'all don't want to update your TV in your store. Like, let me know. Is this?
Hey, listen, man. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up going through that cycle of like the 80s, to be honest with you, just because during that time, you had like, it was just a crazy time, right? So like in the 80s, you always look at, all right, have you ever heard any of those stories of like New York back in the 80s?
Tell me.
Like, so from like stories I've heard of like the 80s and 70s of people that lived during that time, it was just like the Wild West. Like people were doing check scams, or people were doing crimes, or people were just living a way freer life, right? So I do think with the pandemic and how it's shaped where we're going, I definitely can see how like it looks very similar to like the 80s to some extent. So like I can definitely,
if you do have to compare, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, like I mean, the way like regulations are going, you never know. I mean, but even like when we talk about the 80s, right? I'm not sure if you saw this on Twitter, but there was this whole conversation about Drake, and is he this generation's Michael Jackson?
No, this is something we visited before.
Yeah,
y'all love him.
Yo,
you
listen,
all love Drake.
The Drake cast, man.
There's certain people on the podcast who love Drake. I think Drake is cool, but there's people who love Drake
and some
dream
people
about him.
And some people hate him. Jeez, I'm glad you're saying this and he can't defend himself.
Shouts out to Big Cozy.
Yeah, shout out to Big Cozy, too cozy, man. But now, there's this whole conversation about Drake being this generation's Michael Jackson. But if you go back to the 70s or 80s and you look at who Michael Jackson was at his peak,
can't compare.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
So it's funny because when we talked about this before, I'm pretty sure you were on the opposite side of this, specifically you, Spence.
Yeah, well, to me, yes, I was. But from where I was coming from is in terms of popularity, right? Yeah. He is one of those iconic figures at this point, similar to Michael Jackson, similar to Prince, similar to all of them. But in terms of the fandom that Michael Jackson had hundreds of thousands of people standing outside of his hotel just to see him hold his baby and shake and wave his hand.
So with you saying all that, and Kathleen, you can chime in if you want to. Mm-hmm. So last time we talked about this, I had asked you, I said, do you think that people have more access to Drake right now than they did Michael Jackson without the internet in the 80s? And you said, or I'm sorry, did they have more access to Michael Jackson than they do with Drake right now with the internet? And you said yes. Do you still stand on that?
Oh, hold on. I said
no. You said that they had more access to Michael Jackson because they could just call somebody up to come down to the ranch without the internet at any given time than they do Drake right now.
No. If I said that,
that's what you said.
There might have been a misunderstanding.
Don't do that.
I'm just, hey, look, we're revisiting the topic. I just have to know.
He made sure he did some homework before he got it.
Going in for the kill. I'm not ready.
Look, no, the topic's back up. We spoke about it. Check out the other video. We did it. We did something. My best. Go ahead.
Well, to me, maybe there's a misunderstanding because to me, Drake is more accessible via social media. And everything to that nature. In terms of Michael Jackson, it's hard for the public he's not as easily accessible to the public as much. Okay. If Michael Jackson doesn't say anything, then no. But it's easier for us to, at the time, it was easier. I think this is where we might have got confused at, because in terms of the reception from Michael Jackson, it's nothing for Michael Jackson to call a reporter the same way it's nothing for Drake to call a reporter, Charlemagne, and say like, hey, I want to do this interview. But the difference is Drake is on Instagram. I know Drake is hanging out with Conor McGregor. I know Drake is eating tilapia with DJ Khaled. Like, I know Chef Melissa because I watched it. So I know Drake does boxing. I know we see all this stuff through his story. Michael Jackson, we have no idea. People went crazy when he took the blanket off of his son just so we could see his face.
I don't agree with you. I don't disagree with anything you just said. I agree completely with what you just said, which was my point originally. But what were you about to say, Kathleen?
Well, I agree. I just feel a certain difference when it comes to the accessibility of Drake and Michael Jackson. So Drake, I feel like hides a lot, even though he is on social media. And yeah, we know who he's eating lunch with and everything. We didn't know he had a kid. We didn't know how his kid looked like for the longest time.
We knew about that kid. Pusha T let us know about that.
He told us.
Told us the baby mother.
Made sure we were well informed.
Yeah, he even let us know Drake did a commercial back in the day.
Yeah, that we didn't even know about.
That no one ever questioned.
I'm dead. But I mean, he took a while to showcase his son. Like, what, 3 years? I don't know. His could look like 3 when he finally posted that pic. And I just feel like we're accessible, but not accessible to Michael Jackson back in the day because he was just everywhere, you know, on like magazines, etc. But we didn't know what he was up to. Well,
here's what I'll say, right, to that.
Okay.
I think that you have some celebrities that are like Drake that we see pretty much like we're guaranteed to see Drake at least a few times throughout the year. And then we have artists like Frank Ocean, who it's like, hey, if we see Frank Ocean, it's because he probably wants us to see Frank Ocean, or we just got lucky. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it feels like seeing Frank Ocean or even hearing anything about the man. Like, I think that's the way it felt like before the rise of social media. I think with social media and things like that, we do have a lot more access to, you know, everybody. So like, I don't, me personally, like, yeah, there are some celebrities that will be hard to get a hold of. I don't think Drake's one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, hard to get a hold of, and then is better than accessibility. Because I'm like, yeah.
I think we're more accessible. We have more access to Drake than we do The Weeknd.
Well, The Weeknd's definitely more introverted.
That's my point.
Yeah. But even then, though, I think that's also like, because I agree. Like, I think we have more accessibility to Drake than you do The Weeknd. But I also think it's just that thing of like, yo, like Kathleen said, like even though Pusha T introduced us to Drake's personal life of his child, his baby mother, the commercial that no one ever talked about and we just swept under the rug.
We really did.
Yeah, like, hey, listen, man, that's the boy is untouchable, man. Shout outs to Drake. Like, but yeah, like there is that thing of everybody does have to have a private life. So like, I totally get that. But like today, man, even if we take outside of like, cause I think we all agree that like accessibility is one thing, right? But like, even if you just look at the whole thing with Michael Jackson, just in general, like I remember when Drake came to Howard, girls were like, you remember when he said like girls will run a mile for me? There were girls running across one end of campus to the other end of campus just to see Drake. And that's cool. If Michael Jackson had popped up in any city, at any college, the whole city, the whole state would be trying to find a way to be there to see Michael Jackson, not even say anything.
I agree with you.
Yeah. He was like an icon, beyond an icon. I feel like Drake is more, he's so low key. So I just know why I can't compare his like artistry to Michael Jackson, because Michael Jackson, he danced. I mean, Drake, I'll just see him like at that Nike, factory or whatever.
I think
laugh loud, cry later.
As far as their like, you know, content and whatever, like they're definitely two different types of artists. So I don't really like to compare them in that way. But I think as far as popularity goes, you know, it'll be interesting. Like, it'll be interesting to see where we hold Michael Jackson and Drake. What were you about to say, Spence?
what I was gonna carry with was just because I think popularity wise, I think is without question. I think we all agree there. But like even then, outside of popularity, like if we just look in terms of success, right?
Well, go ahead.
Well, and just in terms of success, will we still have that same feeling that there's not a comparison? Because when we look at Drake's accolades, he's Beatles by, Elvis by, Michael Jackson, hey buddy, Prince, hey whatever, Whitney Houston, oh that's cool, Jay-Z, oh hey that thing you did back in the 2000s was cute. Like I mean I'm calling a spade. I'm the biggest Jay-Z fan you'll ever find, probably know every song, almost every lyric. But Drake success wise, like he's outsold the Beatles, he's outsold he's had, well, not outsold him, but he has more number one hits, I think.
He's competitive.
I mean, yes. I think, you found a way to give Drake praise. So that's cool. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, I know you hate him, so it's okay. You ain't stopping nothing, man.
Drake is by far one of the most successful, artists that we've ever seen. I'm just curious to see where he's going to end up in the story of Kanye, personally.
Oh,
that's going to be crazy. You think he's going to be in the documentary?
I mean, he has to be.
Since Netflix is doing a documentary with Kanye West that's going to be released this year, man, Drake has to be somewhere in it. I'm just curious to know if the tension between him and Drake will be talked about. That's going to be the thing, because that Kanye documentary is going to be nuts. That's got to be a series. That can't be like just an hour. I need that to be like a 5-part series.
So, Kathleen, what are you looking forward to seeing when you see this Kanye documentary?
I just think there's a lot of conspiracy when it comes to Kanye. And I feel like he's like the next Britney Spears as far as let's break down every little like thing about him, because he's all about feeling free. And I think he is in a state where he feels controlled by either his marriage, the networks, or freaking his feelings about Drake. It doesn't sit well with my spirit.
You're a fan of Kanye?
Yeah, 100%. I just love his free spirit, and I love that he just does what he feels like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nah, that's a fact. Like, knowing Kanye does whatever he feels like. And knowing Kanye will do a rant at any drop of a dime. What do you think is going to be one of, like, out of all that we've seen of Kanye West throughout his career, what do you think is maybe one of the most interesting, or what part are you anticipating to see in the documentary in terms of like, or what stage of Kanye, I'll say, because we have all the different stages of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, 808s and Heartbreak, so on and so forth.
I like his flashing lights
Ooh.
moment. I really was annoyed by him when he first came out, with College Dropout. I was like, this dude, whatever, because he'd always be on my MTV. There's like, back in the day we had the cable boxes, and then we had the cable music videos that always played on MTV, VH1. And I would always play like MTV, and then his new music would come out. I was like, who's this dude? This is like during the time when like Sugar When You Get So Fly came out,
Oh, what was that? Who was that? Baby Bash? Was that Baby Bash?
Oh, God.
Was that Baby Bash?
Y'all would know better than me if it's Baby Bash. I can't speak on that.
We just only know the song.
Yeah, that's a classic.
I don't even remember that.
That was a classic. Like, whew, what?
Yeah, it's back in the day.
I'm curious to see this Kanye documentary, though. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Kanye is some way, shape, and form involved in this. So I'm curious to see as to what exactly they talk about Kanye, or what new, details they can reveal about certain parts of things that he's did, and certain, certain parts and things that he's done. So I think that it's interesting that they're even making a documentary about Kanye. I think they should make more documentaries about, more current celebrities, because I think that it's good to give flowers to celebrities before they pass away. And you never know when that could be.
Like appreciated.
Right.
But I just feel like there's a controversy with Kanye, and a lot of people love Kanye and a lot of people see him as out there. But just because you like Kanye or anybody likes Kanye doesn't mean that we're like gonna bow down to him in a way.
Mm.
We could like somebody, but not have to bow down to them.
Not submit to them and their thoughts.
Just like, okay, we vibe with it. Like, okay, he did the Taylor Swift thing. He had a point. We like heard him out. But I mean, we didn't like bow down to Kanye. We just let him do his thing on the stage.
Yeah, it reminds me of when he had that whole rant at TMZ.
I remember that. Oh my gosh, that resonated with me.
Yeah, and I think I think Westside used it as a skit for one of his albums, and Kanye was like, "Yo, does everybody get what I'm saying? Do I make sense?" And everybody's like,
"I heard that the other day."
Yeah. And Van Jones was like, "Honestly, I don't think you're saying anything. I think you sound stupid." It's like, I think that's the thing where like with Kanye, like you said, Kanye wants people to submit to him, and then like you have people that are like, "Yo, nah, bro." So I think this should be interesting, especially if you do get to have people that have a alternative look at Kanye West being able to speak. Which, knowing Kanye West, he may say cut their interview. If it's not something nice, don't say it at all.
One more thing before we get off of Kanye, like I just think that it's going to be interesting to see as to what exactly they say about some of the stuff in the latter part of his life, especially right now. Like, I mean, I think at this point in time in Kanye's career, like the music is important, but definitely the theatrics and some of the other stuff that he's done is keeping him in the spotlight is what I'll say. But I mean, like Kanye is he's an enigma in this rap thing.
Oh, definitely. So, I mean, I think it's so ironic that how we were just talking about Drake in the comparison to Michael Jackson, when Kanye West, hopefully in this documentary, we get a chance to hear him talk about that whole mindset where he would say, "I'm the next Michael Jackson, I'm the next Walt Disney." Because Kanye West always looked at himself as one of those ultra creators in that same vein. So it's nice to be able to see someone like this get their flowers, even if he's got to give him being Kanye, giving his flowers to himself.
Yeah.
So
as it should be, though. Yeah.
Sometimes no one's going to pat you on your back. Sometimes sometimes you got to say, "Yo, you're doing a good job." It's like that.
You're doing a good job. Is that a TikTok? Oh my gosh, I caught that so quick. Bitch, you're doing a good job, bitch. You're doing a good job.
Nah, that's a fact. Yo, that's an alarm clock, yo.
So,
yes.
Our ringtone.
Before we move on to anything else, I know, Kathleen, you're about to make your exit. Did you have anything else to say to the listeners?
Thank you guys for everything. I feel really bad about how I explained the Gabby Petito thing. I hope you guys don't go after my soul. But thank you for having interest in the freaking story. And definitely check out my YouTube channel and my Instagram.
Yeah, I was about to say, you got no shameless plugs, man.
Hey.
Where can they follow you at?
Exactly.
Miss_SoClean, and then my Life is So Clean channel, and then stay tuned for my Vegas vlogs.
Yes, I can't wait. I definitely will make sure to be tuning in for that. I hope the listeners are. Make sure y'all comment, like, and subscribe to everything that So Clean Kathleen's got going on.
Hey,
because like we said, she's a Vice affiliate, so she will return.
Yes,
and we know she's gonna have something to say if you guys don't come out. So do us the favor and show her that love.
Hey, thanks, y'all.
See you later, Kathleen.
See y'all.
See you.
All right, listeners. So we just had Kathleen on, and shouts out to her. And also shouts out to, Lau, the tribal chief. He is gone, but we are still here. And me and Spence, happen to be big fans of one rapper in particular. And recently he got an accolade. Lupe Fiasco, Food and Liquor, just went gold. And that's an album I listened to a ton in fucking school when I was going back in the day. I thought the shit was pretty good. It's a classic album. I'm surprised that it took so long to go gold. So it's kind of interesting that it's going gold now.
Yeah, no, that to me, I think that was probably the biggest surprise. Because the same way, Food and Liquor is hands down a classic hip hop album. Whether you like Lupe Fiasco or not, this is definitely the album that brought him to the dance, as well as kept him at the dance, that had fans awaiting, which would be his following classic album, which was The Cool.
Amazing album.
And to me, I think it's his best piece of work.
If you don't think it's his best piece of work, you're probably I just don't agree with you. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, only way I would possibly see someone saying otherwise if they were pulling mixtape Lupe Fiasco.
See, but is that fair when we're talking about Lupe albums?
Yeah, I feel you. I trust me, I totally understand. I mean, that goes into that whole conversation of like, if like how we had that conversation before about like singing rappers, right?
Right.
Whether, if he's a singing rapper, then this, that, and a third. But it's like, or how we were talking about rappers today and then looking back at rappers back then, of saying rappers today sing, and then looking at Bone Thugs and Harmony and saying, yeah, they're singers and not rappers by today's standards. If we looked at it from that standpoint, it's like, if it was streaming era, it would be an album. But even then, like, I don't want to derail us too far from what we're here for.
Shouts out Lupe.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the best lyricists in the game.
Hands down, one of the best lyricists. This album probably was like, it meant a lot, I think, definitely for a lot of us when it came out, because it came out during our high school years. So it's just a great album. I'm kind of upset that it's just getting gold after 16 years?
Yeah, like 16 years. I mean, I'm not surprised. I would assume I am surprised, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cool was already gold just because of the place that holds with a lot of people. So, I mean, this is an album that I listen to every now and then just because, like, you know, it's a great album. And, you know, you got to go back in Lupe's discography sometimes, especially if you're talking about mixtape Lupe.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. I was just listening to mixtape Lupe the other day. Yeah, to me, I think it's his best form. And even Lupe went as far as not even though this had came out like a little bit beforehand, but he did a freestyle to Champagne Poetry as well, which was fire. As well as I believe he has another. This news with Food and Liquor is good also because I believe he's putting out like a 9-song EP sometime, or some type of EP. I'm not sure the amount. I don't want to give a set track list, but he's supposed to be putting out an EP sometime soon as well. So I'm hopefully he's able to do some type of flexing of Food and Liquor going gold as well. So
I mean, with different releases like that from back in the day, we had a new release this weekend, the highly anticipated Side B of Hitler Wears Hermes 8. Unfortunately, Lau, the biggest Westside Gunn fan that we have on the podcast, including guest, is not here. But it's okay because me and Spence did listen to the album.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, like, being a fan of Westside Gunn, nonetheless, this was, and I'm sure Lau would probably agree. I have to tap in with him, see what he would think. But to me, I think this was a good album. This was a good album, well-rounded. Westside, he was able to do what Westside does best, of putting together projects. And I feel like, to me, that he executed this perfectly, man. Like, Westside has Jay Electronica just hopping on. And granted, I see the complaint that I think, Ela, you allowed me, like, in episodes in the past where the track listing, it doesn't include the features, which can make it a little hard in this case, because we do know Westside is like a heavily featured artist. Well, his projects typically are. But this album was great, man. Like, I love the verse where we had Jay Electronica. I think he had Pharrell on one. I forget what song Pharrell produced on this. As well as, like, even I was a fan of Celine Dion. And How You Start intro by A.A. Rashad, to me, is hands down probably the best intro I've heard in a while also, in terms of what Westside does with A.A. Rashad especially.
I think what he does with him is always kind of cool. I think the beats he has him talk on always sound amazing. So I'm never mad at hearing A.A. Rashad talk for a little bit of time. I think personally, my favorite might be the one from Who Made the Sunshine, though, just because I just like that. But I mean, this album's good. Unfortunately, because it came out so close to Side A, like, I didn't really have a choice but to compare them as I was listening to them. One of the features that I really like from Side B, because I wasn't expecting it, was the 2 Chainz feature. I thought he came in, and did a good job rapping. 2 Chainz, I feel, is somewhat of an underrated rapper because of his rapping style. But I think whenever he raps, he usually kills it. You know what I mean? So I'm not mad at the verse he had. I thought it was actually pretty enjoyable. Side B has a lot of great beats. I think Side B, because it's not as concise as Side A, to me personally, is kind of it's just not as good as Side A, but it's a good listen for sure. I think if you think about them as a double disc, the way it was supposed to be or the way that it was released. The way I see it is as a double disc, side B is the more Westside centric side. I mean, and it definitely does sound good. Side A definitely has a lot of Stove God, a whole bunch of other features. And I think that that one's kind of like hey, this is the curated by Westside. Side B is like, hey, you get Westside. So, I mean, me personally, I'm not mad at side B. I'm curious to see what else comes out from Griselda later on this year.
Nah, that's a fact. I mean, I see. My thing is when it comes to side A and side B, like, because I believe we did say like last week or 2 weeks ago about looking at these as instead of looking at them as just two separate albums instead of side A and side B. But even then, like you said, they came out weeks apart, so it's so hard to It's so hard to separate the two. And listening to it, I would say I personally prefer side B more. And I say that because it's I think side A is so heavily featured with Stove God Cooks, which I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of Stove God, but I think the way he was able to take, granted they're bigger features on side B, they're more mainstream features, more anticipated features by fans that have a bigger fan base. But I feel like he was able to do what Westside always does, is just using the features correctly. Even like the 2 Chainz verse. Like 2 Chainz isn't a slouch. Like I think, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but like, I think like 2 Chainz isn't a slouch in so many words. So he was able to stand strong. To me, Jay Electronica probably had one of my favorite verses off here though.
You know, I think the thing for me is that, okay, let's say Stove God was on like 70% of side A, right? We can agree to that.
Right.
But my thing is that how many songs did Stove God like just make where it's like, yo, he killed that? Now, if you want to say, hey, that's great for the album, but that's not great for necessarily thinking of where you place it in album of the year, cool. I understand that. But I mean, like Vogue cover wouldn't be the same without, did I say Westside? I meant Stove God. If I messed it up, whatever.
Yeah.
But Vogue cover wouldn't be the same without Stove God. I think Westheimer, which is a song that me and you both enjoy right now, like those are songs that essentially rely on Stove God to drive the song. So I mean, like me personally, I'm not mad at that. I think that's just once again speaks to how good Westside is at curating his albums.
Nah, I can understand that. Like, I mean, Westside, like that's the thing. Like you said, it's like how we were saying earlier. Like everybody has to know the role that they play, and sometimes a person may not know, but the coach, like you have to, sometimes you need Pat Riley. And to me, Westside Gunn, especially when on side A, he definitely, well, projects in general, he's like a Pat Riley of just knowing, okay, this or Popovich. Oh, I don't have to have the most flashy rappers, X, Y, and Z. It's like, yo, I can put something together. Give me this crew and I can put a team together. And I think with Stove God Cooks, it definitely shows in side A, because it definitely, like you said, some of those songs, Stove God drives it. And if Westside was so like, if Westside wasn't who he was as a person from what it comes across as, he would probably say, nah, you're doing too much on my song. Like Stove God really makes the song his song, but you need that touch. It's like 40. Like 40, even if Drake has someone else produce a song for him, 40 touches it last. 40's the last one to touch it. And it's kind of like that with Westside to some extent when it comes to Stove God, I think.
Well, there was a couple other releases that I didn't really get a chance to listen to, but we figured that we give them some shine just because, we like the artists or we, have fucked with some of their past releases. We had CRIMEAPPLE, who just released a mixtape, or I should say an album with DJ Muggs. Larry June and Cardo. Spence, I'm not sure if you got a chance to listen to that because I know Larry June's your guy. AAA numbers.
Hey. Goddamn. Now I think I played maybe 1 or 2 songs from the album. I haven't had a chance to sit down with it. I was mainly focused on side B with Westside Gunn, which, speaking of Larry June,
was on there.
He was on there. Him and Jay
Worthy.
Jay Worthy. Him and Jay Worthy were on a song with Westside. So shout outs to him there. I'm definitely going to be checking out the Late Night. I think that's definitely going to be one of those projects that honestly, I feel like Westside, to me, to me, Larry June projects are something that are best just driving, like outside with the wind blowing, or just some. It's how his whole demeanor is of just laid back, healthy type of style.
So the one release that came out this week, I'm gonna have to play the loud role this week. Unfortunately, I listened to a little bit of NBA Youngboy's album, and I'm just not really the fan of that type of music. So to me personally, when I'm gonna give it a chance, just because I don't feel like the chance I gave it was fair. That's not usually the type of rap I listen to, but he did put out an album, Sincerely, Kendrell. And me personally, I'm going to give it a chance because I feel like I should.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. And I mean, granted, Youngboy is someone that I can understand not being a big fan of, or the type of music he makes. Like, I think Youngboy is also I think he's one of the biggest artists of like this new era. Is even in the numbers back it up. I think in terms of numbers, he's probably like top 3 of like this new era between like the Lil Babies, the Moneybagg Yo's, and everything like that. I'll have to check it out. I didn't have a chance to listen to it, but I do know like he's a very aggressive rapper. So I'm I can only imagine what the subject matter is about. Is he talking about his whole? Is he still locked up?
I think he is, but I mean, I'm honestly not sure. But I didn't listen to it close enough. Like, it was kind of like one of those, like, hey, I just want to hear the sound of it type listens. You know what I mean?
It was just like, I got to get this out the way.
Nah, not even. Like, I was just listening to it. Like, the way I see it is, if I don't like the way it sounds, I probably won't like it. You know what I mean? Right. So, like, before I listen to even a Westside album, if I'm not listening to the full lyricism of what he's saying, I have to like the way it sounds. That's why I like Hell on Earth Part 2. I just like the way it sounds. But I mean, that the lyricism and everything else comes with it, the way you sound over a beat. But the sound of the overall song needs to sound good in order to listen to it. I think that's the reason why a lot of people like music.
Nah, I can understand that. Like, I think a lot of times it does come down to how it sounds. And if it, like you said, like even like they say, like if the beat doesn't catch you, then you're in for a long night. So it's definitely one of those things where you definitely want to be able to, it has to pull you in musically, even if it doesn't pull you in lyrically. Now, like you said, lyrics do have to play a part, but in some cases, there are people that just choose to do rapping and just have no beat. And in those cases, in those rare forms, is receptive. And I think the best scene of that is probably Summer Madness, the URL event. I'm not sure if the listeners are familiar, but URL, the battle rap, URL TV, the battle rap company, them and Caffeine actually hosted Summer Madness 11, which is pretty much like the WrestleMania, as Lau always refers to the WrestleMania of. This is like the WrestleMania of URL. It's one of their biggest events. They actually held it in Houston. It was a sold out event. I'll put it like this. For it to be the event that it was supposed to be, like you said, sometimes you need a beat, man, because some of these acts weren't the best.
Let's get the bad ones out the way first.
All right, so let's just start from the very beginning, right? From the very first battle, MVP versus Real Name Brandon. Wasn't it? Yeah, it wasn't.
We don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, it was, to me, battle rap wise, I do want to say this. I think MVP to me came out trying to start off with punchlines. He was a little too heavy with punchlines coming out, and he wasn't doing, his setups weren't the best. So he wasn't trying, he was anticipating the crowd's reaction in his bars, which kind of messed him up versus just keep rapping. And if the crowd reacts, they react. So he ended up having a bad performance. Real Name Brandon, he was more of a performer to me in comparison to MVP. But at the same time, and he actually was getting a better crowd reception, but he was just marginally better. So hopefully these guys kind of get their act together, and hopefully they can, Real Name Brandon, he can, and hopefully it does something forward in terms of his career.
I'm not mad at Real Name Brandon for the battle. I think he played a decent role. Like you said, he was a better performer, and I think that's as to why some of his bars got off a little bit more. during the performance. To me, the battle itself as a whole just wasn't all that great. But, you know, shouts out to real name Brandon for at least bringing something to the battle. That was cool. Not to say that MVP was a trash rapper. I don't want to do all that to him, but wasn't my favorite.
Right. They weren't that far apart in terms of talent for the most part. But I mean, even outside of that, right? Like, I mean, it was an opening act. It's great to see them on the Summer Madness stage. But following that, they actually ended up being, I believe, the opener for Arsenal versus Lou Castro, which ended up being a good battle for, in terms of, to me, I have Arsenal winning that. Either I would say 3-0, but I can see someone saying 2-1 because Lou Castro wasn't that great in his first 2 rounds. In that third round, he just went crazy. So but even then, I can see how it's still at 3-0.
Me personally, I'm going to give it you know what? I'm going to give it a 2-1 because I think Lou Castro might have took that. Well, I can't even remember the third round that Arsenal had at the moment, but I think Arsenal did enough. Matter of fact, no, let me restart that because I remember now. I want to give that a 3-0 for Arsenal just because I feel that overall his performance was just better and he was hitting some schemes and rhymes that seemed that until the third round, Lou Castro just wasn't hitting. I think we had said that as we were watching the last night, maybe he just didn't have 3 rounds worth of that third round. But that third round was a good round.
Yeah, it was. I think like even from I think it was Arsenal he did the power flip of the streets need a body. And to me, I think that was like a crazy line as well as the that was Surf. But yeah, like he did a great job, but even with Lou Castro, like you said, he had a fire third round, which to me personally, I think what probably happened was I think his third round may have been the first round he wrote, right? And because it was so good, I felt like when he had to write round 2 and when he wrote his first and second round, I think he was trying to anticipate like, yo, I wrote my third round first. And I need my first 2 rounds to follow up with it because with a third round that strong, it wasn't rebuttal heavy or anything. With a third round that strong, I could have seen that being like, this was like, yo, you should have started here. This is how you should have started the battle, right? But at the same time, it's like for you not to start the battle with that type of intensity as the third round, I'm guessing, like you said, he didn't have those other 2 rounds. And more than likely, he was writing those afterwards, trying to make them. He probably was dealing with the pressure of writing 2 more rounds that sounded as good as that third, man. But shout outs to Lou Castro. Hopefully he learns from this and he can that third round does enough for him to move him forward.
So what was the next battle?
The next battle was actually Chess versus Easy the Block Captain. The
best battle.
Hands down, battle of the night. I do think, I think there were some people saying that this was a debatable. To me, I got Easy to Block Captain 3-0 in chess. I can argue 2-1, which is fine. But Easy to Block Captain, he was just more better of a battler. Anything in terms of the subject matter, any points that chess was trying to go to with Easy to Block Captain, he was playing in his own within his realm, whether it be talking about being locked up, the streets, whatever. It's like, hey, I think Easy to Block Captain said something of like, yo, when I caught my first gun charge was back in 2008 and you wasn't even a decade old. So like, it just lets you know, like in terms of the life experience that he was pulling from, it's hard to outbeat someone when you play at their game.
So in my opinion, I feel like Easy to Block Captain was just good at doing the, streets, life type rap. You know what I mean? Real right. Bars, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, I think that Chess was good at it as well, but I don't think he was really matching Easy in what he was doing. And I think that his second round really kind of saved him from being 3-0'd. But that being said, though, I mean, when somebody's that good at rapping about that, you can't really do that with them. So I feel like you kind of got to change your strategy just a little bit. I mean, me personally, it's like trying to rap with like Lux about like, priorities. You know what I mean? Yeah. Probably wouldn't be your best decision.
Well, yeah, something like that. I mean, priorities probably, let's not use priorities. Only reason I say that is because priorities is a term by X Factor. That's his slogan.
I'm wrong. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm tripping.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. Like, because at the end of the day, Luck's thing is like activism and like the conscious thing, which is essentially priorities nonetheless, just a different way of putting it. So like, but nonetheless, so I definitely see that, whereas like you can't fight it's not always easy to play someone else's game and win. Right. So I definitely can give you that. I think this was the battle that came up afterwards. After that Easy to Block Captain battle, I believe was Hollow to Don versus K-Shine.
So this was the last battle that I actually enjoyed from the night. I think that Hollow to Don is a very good battle rapper. And when I hear him rap, I think that he's just usually good at going in and being a performer. But not only that, actually having good rhyme schemes and whatever. It just seemed like he was out rapping K-Shine and also outperforming K-Shine. It just seemed like no matter what K-Shine did in the next round, he was going to lose the Hollow. So like me personally, I enjoyed that battle, but it wasn't because it was necessarily competitive.
Yeah, I can agree there. To me, when I watched the battle, I did see where that Hollow had the clear advantage. Hollow kind of came into this battle, and we all know Hollow does what Hollow does, which is being able to be funny. He doesn't always have to go with a lyrical miracle style but he knows how to incorporate being funny while also adding that sense of lyricism into the battle. So I think he was able to achieve that. And I think K-Shine was having a hard time. The crowd looked like they weren't going for him, and which was reasonable because to me, Hollow was just a better battler. I kind of did. This battle kind of did lose me somewhat because to me, it felt one-sided for the most part. So Hollow is Hollow to Don, and I had to give it to Hollow as well. The battle that followed that, though, was probably one of the most awaited battles of this card, which was Sue Surf versus Jon the Don. As the announcers would say, the Sue Surf's arch enemy, his arch rival, Jon the Don.
So does that have any truth to it whatsoever? Listeners, you got to understand, I'm not really in the rap battle culture like that.
Yeah. So just to give you a little backstory, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say they're arch rivals because they're not, as you saw that night, they weren't. Well, let me not even say that, but they're not arch rivals, right? They know each other. They're all cool. Right. Battle rappers for the most part. And actually going back to Lou Castro's battle where they kept doing this shoulder bump the whole night. Like most of these guys are friends outside of this. This is just like, hey, I'm going to push you, bump you, but we friends. Once we get out of here, we're probably going to go to the bar or club together.
Right.
So there's never been a thing, but Jon the Don has been chasing Sue Surf for a while. He's been begging to get a battle with him for the past couple of years, and he did finally get his match. He finally got his one wish, you can say. And of course, what happened was you separate the boys from the men in this battle. To me, Jon the Don was doing a great job. He performed well. I liked his rounds. He was making it a fight, and some will probably say it's a debatable. But to me, when Sue Surf kind of got on stage, he even said, we're not in Houston tonight. We're in New Jersey. And he made sure we felt that by just bar after bar, whether it was basketball flips, whether it was just talking to him, no matter what, wherever he wanted to go, he could take it to Jon. And Jon had a hard time that night. I give it to Surf. I don't think I'm very curious. I'm really curious. I wish they had post press conferences saying the same as they do in the UFC, because I would love to hear them two talk about them recapping this, or if they did, I may have missed it.
Well, as far as the Jon to Don battle, me personally, I thought that Sue Surf won. I thought that overall, I think more of his performance was good. I think that his bars hit a little harder. And me personally, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to it, but after the performance he put on against, who did he battle at the last battle we watched together, Spence?
You're talking about Jon the Don or Sue Surf?
Sue Surf.
I think the last battle we may have seen him may have been $3. Nah, he battled Reed Dollars later. It was when he battled Lux. He battled Lux at the Quiet Room last summer.
So after seeing the Lux battle, I was curious to see what he did, and I think that he put on another amazing performance. Now, going on to Reed Dollars, and we don't have to stick on these last battles too long. Yeah. They weren't enjoyable to me, and that's all I really have to say about them.
Yeah, well, and listen, to me personally, I'm willing to go even further, a step further. To me, I think the way I was going to introduce the next battle, the co-main, which was Murder Mook versus Reed Dollars, was that this may have been the worst battle of the night.
It was. Not me.
Yeah. And I say that knowing that there wasn't a big fandom or a fan reaction from MVP versus Real Brandon, which was the opening act. That opening act was better than this. I don't even know if I would say a battle, because the crowd wasn't receptive to Mook. Neither were they receptive as much to Reed Dollars. Similar to one of my friends has said that they think Reed Dollars probably needs a few more battles before he gets in there to be on that big of a stage, which is possible because Reed is pretty much, for a lack of better terms, how Sue Surf said to Jon in their face-off about Ace Amin, he's still learning how to battle rap to some extent, right? Or get him, in Reed's case, he's just getting himself more acclimated back to the battle rap culture. So he lost this. I wouldn't even say Reed lost. I would say the only person that won was the promoter in this case. Because this was a long, I'm not sure if you know, this was a long awaited battle. This is a battle that was supposed to happen when these two guys were the biggest battle rappers in the world back in the the mid 2000s. Yeah, mid 2000s, early 2000s is a different era.
Here's the thing. My bad. Sorry, go ahead.
During that era, this was the biggest fan awaited battle, and then they ended up putting it together at this time. Similar to Nick Diaz, how Nick Diaz said, I don't know why this even happened. Well, I don't even know who booked this.
Here's my thing, right? Like, as far as that battle goes, like, I'm not really into the culture. So, like, I watched that battle. I didn't enjoy it. I'm not going to watch it again. And as far as Nick Diaz goes, now, we'll move into that in a bit. We'll move into that a bit. But I wasn't really a big fan of that battle at all.
Yeah, and because I just want to close this out with the main event of the night, which was Geechee Gotti versus Calico.
No.
Wasn't a big fan of it either. And I think it was partially because it wasn't a bad battle, right? They were both good battle rappers. I think the thing was when the co-main event is just not that great. And let's be honest, this is battle rap is fan dependent to some extent, right? And I think Sue Surf showed that a lot, because when you saw him against Lux in the Quiet Room, he was having a hard time and he ended up choking. But once you put him in front of a crowd, he does well. So I think crowd reaction does play a part when it comes to battle rap and for battlers to feed off of. And to me, it just felt like the Geechee Gotti one, the Geechee Gotti Calico, whether it be the fans in the building or whether it be me as a fan, it didn't do it for me. So it wasn't a bad battle. I'll probably give it to, I'm not even going to say who I think won, because I didn't pay enough attention to it to be able to make an accurate prediction. Because by this time the pay-per-view had already started for UFC 266. So
I mean, I hadn't really paid attention, so let me not be so hard on it either. But yeah, by that time, listeners, we were moving on to my main event for the night, which was UFC 266. It was a pretty big card, as we alluded to last week in the preview. But we made it there, and before the main event even started, we were watching the prelims. And, there was a fight that came on, Marlon Moraes' most recent fight. And at the beginning of the fight, I was talking to, everybody in the room. Spence was there, and I was like, hey, I think this fight's going to be ended in the second round by the guy he faced. Can't pronounce his name. Have no idea how to pronounce his name. But that being said, I was just like, I have a strong feeling he's going to end this fight in a second. And I was just like, just watch. Now, Spence, did you enjoy that?
It was a good fight. I enjoyed the fight. You definitely did call it. I think Moraes, I think he might have had, there was only one moment in that fight where, because he was getting tagged and he was getting the upper hand of his opponent. But similar to the fashion of what you said, you're like, yo, if he can make it through this, he's going to win. And he surely came through and won the fight. It was impressive, actually. I was very impressed by it. I think because I believe the guy was ranked 11, and now and I think Marias is ranked 8. So hopefully this helps get him into the top 10 at this point. And he had a good performance. I'm curious to see what his opponent does. I'm similar to like you said, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but I will give you your credit because you definitely called this fight while they were walking into the octagon. So
yeah, man. I mean, look, like I like Marlon Moraes. I think he's a very skilled fighter. His gas tank has been very suspect since he's been in the UFC, and also his chin has as well. And I think that, honestly, with this latest loss on his record, I think he is out of the last 4 fights. 1-3. And I think the one is a very shaky decision over Jose Aldo, which I can't remember at the moment. But I think that fight was a little controversial because people thought Jose Aldo won.
I think I do remember. I'm not sure if it was that fight, but I do remember there was a fight where Jose Aldo did lose, and there was some talk around it. So I have a question then. So what do you think is the best direction for Morales moving forward?
Unfortunately, I think he'll get cut. I don't think he's going to stay in the UFC anymore. I'm pretty sure that when he came into the UFC, he probably had a little bit of a price tag because he was a champion in the World Series of Fighting while that was still, a relevant promotion. Right. So I think that, more than likely he'll end up being cut. I think that he'll probably make his way over to Bellator or I can't remember the name of the other.
1FC.
Not 1FC. The one
PFL?
that's on ESPN. PFL. Thank you. He'll probably make his way over to one of those promotions and he'll have a little bit of success. He's not a bad fighter, but he just hasn't been able to put it together in the UFC at all. So, shouts out to him. But that was the last fight prior to the main card starting. And Spence, did you have any thoughts on any fights, or did you want to start from the main event and work down?
Let's build our way up to the main event.
Okay. So what are your thoughts?
So first fight we're talking is Jessica Andrade versus Cynthia
Calvillo.
Man, listen, this was one fight that I believe going into the fight, we had said like, oh, Jessica Andrade this isn't going to be a problem for her. And sure enough, it wasn't. Jessica Andrade went in there, handled this woman like it was nobody's business. But we already knew this. Jessica Andrade, she's just dominant, man. She's a dominant figure. And I think we had said like there's a reason why
she's still on the title picture.
Exactly. It's similar to how we said about DC before, right? How I think I use this as a term for DC, where when Jon Jones was the champion, DC was always number 2. He always found his way of clearing everybody else out of the division to fight for the championship, but just couldn't beat the champion. So in Jessica Andrade's case, just from what this looks like, it wasn't really that much. It wasn't much to be said other than like, yo, she came through and handled business that we already predicted.
I wasn't mad at Jessica Andrade for the job she did as far as, getting the stoppage against Cynthia Calvillo. I expected a little bit more from Cynthia, but, Jessica Andrade is Jessica Andrade, and she's like pretty permanent She's a pretty much permanent figure. She's a pretty permanent figure in the flyweight division, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, I think that, I can't really be too mad at her for winning that fight. I was very surprised. Now, the next fight, honestly, and I'm not sure if you have much to say about it, but in my opinion, the worst fight from the main card, I think that Curtis Blades did what he usually does, except in the stand-up, he didn't really throw much of anything. But because Rosenstrike seemed to be so afraid of being taken down, all he had to do was feint him to death in order to keep him guessing and, push him and pressure him. The few times that he did, because it wasn't like it happened like a lot. It was very frustrating for me to watch, seeing as like I was actually looking forward to this card. But I mean, it is what it is. You can't have all, fire cards all the time. Spence, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You can't always have fire cards every time, but this fight was probably a travesty to me. Because it was a lot of feigning. It was just nothing but dancing for the most part. It was a dancing fight for all three rounds. It was all 3 rounds, just nothing but a dancing match. Rosenstrike wasn't really unloading like that, which I had called this fight where I thought Rosenstrike would end this fight in the first or second round. No, I knew this. I believe that this fight wouldn't even make it to the third round at least, with just a KO from Rosenstrike. But it wasn't that. I'm surprised that the ref didn't really stop them as much and say, you guys need to be more active in the fight, because it was like I said last night, ever since the pandemic, right? I feel as though the UFC cards have gotten better, and not just in terms of the big box ones, but just in general. A lot of fights because I think initially you just saw a lot of fighters didn't know. No one knew what would happen next. So Dana was putting on the very best fights. And on paper, this looked to be a very good fight. We had a lot of high expectations, especially with the cards we've had previously, as well as just seeing some of the fights in the more recent weeks. But this fight was just a travesty, man. Like I'm quite sure their phone won't be getting picked up anytime soon. Curtis Blades, who did win this fight against Rosenstrike, I don't think his phone will be going off anytime soon for a bigger fight after this.
Curtis Blades put on a good example as to why you don't necessarily just want to win. So, in my opinion, like, I think that, good job on getting another W on your record, but you did nothing to impress me personally. But I mean, but that being said, let's move on to the next fight.
The more impressive, or as well. Go ahead.
The people's main event is what I was going to call it.
Yes.
Perfect. The return of Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler after 17 years. This fight was pretty interesting. Now, it was funny because I predicted Nick Diaz to win this fight, and I just figured, why not? But, after seeing him fight last night, I don't want to see Nick Diaz fight again, if I'm being honest personally. He just looks like he didn't really care to be there, especially at the finish of the fight. He looked incredibly slow, like, age is actually catching up to him, which, I mean, he is 38 or 39. So, I mean, that just happens over time if you're not constantly being active. After seeing that fight, do you really think he can fight somebody like Kamaru? Do you really think he can fight somebody like Izzy? Do you think he can fight somebody like Jorge and win? Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's be like 100% real. And, shouts out to Nick Diaz. He's a legend, but at the same point in time, why do we want to watch somebody go through that who just isn't there? It's not like GSP who beat Michael Bisping. This is something totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was even for a title at that point. This is one of those fights that even like Nick said initially, where he's like, yo, I don't even know why we're having this fight, which I think is just BS, because he just wanted to fight he was trying to angle his way for his next, and if he were to win the fight, who he would want to fight next, which would be Usman. And Usman was taking the bait a little bit. I do agree he would have gotten demolished by anybody that's a top 5 fighter, any top 5 fighter, top 7 fighter probably. He would probably get demolished by. He looks slow. The thing that made this fight actually interesting and good was the fact that though because they're both 38, 39, him and Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler, this fight was a fight where they were going back to the old school of just like, hey, we're going to sit here and bang it out. And they were getting busy with each other. But to me, honestly, after seeing this, I think Nick Diaz needs to retire as well as Robbie Lawler. Because even though Robbie Lawler won this fight, because of how it wasn't a definitive win, but it wasn't a definitive win, if you get what I mean. In terms of when they were competing with each other, they were both catching each other. There were moments in time in the fight I thought Robbie Lawler was going to get knocked out, which was a surprise to me, because it was like Diaz is throwing these old man slow punches
and hitting them.
Exactly. Exactly. This reminds me.
His head was turning different colors,
and that scared me, because I was saying to myself, I'm like, yo, this reminds me of seeing Chuck Liddell like fighting in that. Did you ever watch that little grudge match he did with Tito Ortiz like I think it was like their third fight.
Absolutely not, man.
It was horrible. It was horrible to watch. I remember watching. It was horrible to watch because Chuck Liddell he was much older. He was a shell of himself in so many words. And seeing this from both fighters, I understand they got fan bases. They have fan bases that would like to see them fight, especially Nick Diaz. But after this, I think it's best to hang it up. I was surprised. I think DC was trying to leave the space open after the fight to say like, hey, if you want to announce your retirement, you can do it right now. What's your plans after this? And he's like, oh, I'm going to just go back to the drawing board. I'm like, dude, you're done. Like, even when the fight was over, Robbie Lawler got up and was like, yo, come on, get back on your feet. And it reminded me of Mike Tyson with Lennox Lewis, where he just laid on the ropes and was just like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, it was weird, man. Like, I'm not going to lie. And when I saw that, I was just like, all right, for Nick Diaz, like, you've had a legendary career, legend of the sport. Just be done. There's no shame in that. You know what I mean? And I feel like Robbie Lawler should be done as well. But, that being said, I'm sure there will be more to talk about because the Diaz brothers definitely, aren't ones to be quiet. And I'm sure that we'll hear, what's going on next with Nick Diaz. Now, the co-main event, the Bullet herself, Valentina Shevchenko, came in, did her thing like we all predicted. Shouts out to Lauren Murphy. Definitely, try to be game, but Valentina is just too skilled for her. She went in there, she dominated all aspects of the fight, standing up on the ground to eventually get the finish. I mean, I'm not necessarily mad at her, but I'm not mad at her for, the way she, competed, but I think she was just outclassed. You know what I mean? Shouts out to Valentina, one of the best females to ever do it. And I think the UFC should definitely get behind her.
Oh, no, that's a fact. I think they need to stand more behind her after seeing this performance. This performance overall, it was a clear indication that Valentina is just a dominant figure within her division as well as within this fight. She at no point in this fight did I feel any concern that Valentina had a tenth of a percent of losing this fight, right? I didn't even have that much doubt in me. Valentina, shout out to Lauren Murphy as well, but she did look nervous in there when she was fighting. She was getting eat up by some leg kicks as well. That probably didn't help because I'm not sure if you noticed, but when she was in her stance or coming out into the match, there was all this bouncing jitteriness that it seemed, while Valentina just looked like she just looked so calm. Like she looked like she had just woken up from a nap, how calm she was in there. And just teeing her off, I'm surprised. I was surprised that Murphy made it this far into the fight by the fight ending in the fourth round because she was just taking a beating the whole time. There's nothing you can do against a fighter like that. Sometimes it's just the way it works. Someone that good comes along and you just can't beat them no matter how hard you can try. And Murphy did try, but it just wasn't enough. Now,
going to the main event after this, and I think the main event delivered way more than I expected it to. Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, match of the night, featherweight title fight. Wow, that fight was good. I was talking to Spence last night, and usually MMA math is a crazy thing. And I figured because Alexander Volkanovski was able to hang in there with Max Holloway, his stand-up will be good enough to hang in there with Brian Ortega. I also noticed that Brian Ortega, while he has more of a submission game, his overall ground control, I'll say, I don't think is necessarily better than Alexander Volkanovski. And that showed last night, in my opinion. Alexander Volkanovski, went in there, and I think when he started really connecting with his shots, I think he showed as to why he's the current champion. And I thought that the performance he put on was amazing.
Nah, I agree. I think this performance was amazing. Volkanovski showed that there was a difference between the two fighters. He was able to stay in the pocket most of the time, hitting him with a jab, being able to slip his punches, connecting to the body, hitting him with any shots that he wanted. And he was taking some hits, though, because there was a moment in time where I got to give Brian Ortega his credit, where Brian Ortega, he was taking a beating. I think it was in the second round. he found a way of actually clipping Volkanovski and dropping him. As soon as he dropped him, he tried to go for a submission. And it was like such a chain of events, a turning change of events that it ramped up the fight so much more. And then I think that in that second round, Brian Ortega almost came close to getting a submission twice, but Volkanovski, he wasn't having it. The only way he was losing that fight is if he left out on the stretcher. You could tell. And like you said before, his game planning for this fight, it superseded like all the MMA math that we could probably even calculate, because he just looked, stand-up wise, he looked like he was a better stand-up fighter. On the ground, he was a better fighter on the ground. Submission wise, he was almost getting submitted. He almost got submitted a couple times, and he was getting caught by Brian Ortega, but he was just leaving damage. Brian Ortega at some point in the fight, at the end of the fight, they came close to the refs had to step in, which probably helped him so he can get a second win to see if he should even continue fighting, because his eyes looked like they were closing shut from that knee that Volkanovski gave to him. So,
I personally thought that when he caught those two submissions in the third, I was like, oh, this fight might be over, because it just seems so like tight. And he's known for, putting on triangles and, his submission game. So when he had the guillotine and the triangle, I was like, ooh, this, might be a little rough. But he pulled out and he was able to make it to the rest of the fight. I was thoroughly impressed by Oleksandr Volkanovski. And last week I had said that I wasn't necessarily a fan of his fighting style. But I mean, like, after watching this fight, and maybe, I was just hating a little bit. But watching that fight last night, I enjoyed that fight a lot. So definitely all the kudos to him.
Yeah, I definitely the kudos to him. I do have a question though. So in terms of after seeing a dominant fight from Volkanovski last night, as well as seeing how he had a game plan for beating Max Holloway in their last fight, what do you think is the best option or the best move for Volkanovski in his next potential opponent? I mean, at this point,
I think what they're going to try to do is Yair versus Max Holloway. I'm also seeing some reports that Zabit is back. So I know that people, really want to see Zabit fight. But that being said, because he's been out for so long, he's going to need, I think 1 or 2 more fights to actually be the next contender. Right. But I think Max Holloway, the trilogy is going to happen at some point, just because they seem to be the best ones to do it. Max Holloway, I don't see him losing to Yair. And after you beat Calvin Kattar the way he did, and if he beats Yair, then, what else does he have to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, I think the thing about Max Holloway is like Max has found his way of being one of those guys in that division. And I think even at featherweight, I don't see him. I don't see in terms of his road back to the title or for that trilogy. I do see him making his way there. I mean, like you said, Zabit, that would be great. But if you're coming back from an injury, you do need to have he hasn't built up the status or the right to come back off an injury and come for a championship, right? So he hasn't got himself to that point, but I don't know. I think I can see that happening where we end up getting that trilogy some way. But yeah, I think that might be the best option as well. Like finding a way of getting that trilogy between him and Max, which would probably be a great fight. I mean, depending on how the fight goes, because now I believe what they are. Volkanovski's up. Volkanovski is up, 2-0 against Max, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's even if a trilogy happens, it's weird because in the event of a trilogy, typically if you win the fight the first time, you win the fight the second time, and ideally the third time as well. But with someone like Max, he's good and he's willing to put in the work. It's just all about, I think it really depends on the game plan that Volkanovski could possibly show if that ends up being his next fight. But nonetheless, shout outs to Volkanovski. It was probably to me the fight of the night for myself and by preference from what I saw. So,
well, I mean, there was some other news in the UFC. GSP got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And one of Jon Jones's fights got inducted to the Hall of Fame as well. Unfortunately, Jon Jones, being my favorite fighter, also had some rough situation go on. We don't know exactly as to all the details. He said that he wants to be back next year in Q2 to fight, But if the details of this report are correct, it looks like he might be in trouble with the law. Jon Jones got arrested for what appears to be domestic violence and tampering with a vehicle, which is also a felony, apparently, where they are in Vegas. Spence, what do you have to make of all this?
It's still too early to come out with an opinion, right? In terms of the typical rhetoric when it comes to Jon Jones of like, this is a guy that can't get right. Based off his history and past, this doesn't look good. Just because it just seems like something's trailing him. But I do need to see more details come out about this on how this whole thing happened. It is unfortunate nonetheless, because in that Hall of Fame, during that inductee for the Hall of Fame, when they had a chance to interview Jon, he was talking about how he wanted to go in a quarter two. He's trying to get up to 275 before he starts cutting weight to fight in heavyweight. And when I believe they asked him questions about like some of the things like drinking and everything like that. And he made it sound as though like, yeah, that's my past life. Pretty much it sounded like someone that was like, yo, I'm staying on the straight and narrow and I'm an adult. I've grown out of these situations. If these events do end up being true, it's going to be a little disheartening to see someone say something like that. And then less than 24 hours later, they found themselves getting arrested for a domestic violence charge. But hopefully, I hope it's not. Hopefully, this is all a misunderstanding. But even then, like if the evidence comes out that he's done something again, it's a black eye. And I think, to be honest with you, if this comes out that it's something that he did and ends up putting a black eye on him, I think this may end up messing up his quest to be in heavyweight, because at the end of the day, it's too much of a liability. Because imagine you doing this and you try and set this fight up with him and Francis, and then something like this pops up. If
Jon Jones is in trouble the way that the reports make it seem to be, I think this is the last time we really see Jon Jones fight. Like, you know what I mean? I think the legacy that, I mean, let's just be real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it is as bad as what it's being made out to be, like, why would you just keep on putting the title? Because, excuse me, I mean, if we're being honest, Jon Jones isn't coming back and just fighting just to fight. He's going to fight either a top contender at heavyweight or he's going to fight for the title, which he should fight for the title because he's Jon Jones. So, like, at the end of the day, I just don't see how you can do that with somebody who is getting in trouble like that. And I would hope that it's not that, but only time will tell.
Yeah, definitely. So only time will tell. It doesn't look good, especially if he wants to try to continue something. It really hurts me if this is the last time we see Jon. And even if we don't, I wouldn't be surprised if this is probably the end of an era for him. He's having at some point this has to get old. Right. And I'm quite sure the stress of it is probably going. I wouldn't be surprised if the stress of this, even after having like a clean record for the past couple of years, and this still follows you, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up impacting him going into his next fight, or if he does have a next fight based off the type of charges that's going on, or if he does fight again. I don't think he should be fighting for a title right away. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know. It wouldn't be surprising if Dana says, "Hey, listen, Jon's having all this stuff happen. How about we give him Cyril Gahn? If Cyril Gahn beats him, we get Jon out the picture completely, and this also helps boost up this other kid. But it just wouldn't be a big fight. And even I think Jon has said that. But with this case, he's not in a position really to dictate what gets offered to him at this point, unfortunately.
Right, exactly. Like I think Jon Jones, the leverage that he did have, he kind of lost a little bit just because, like, you know, the stuff that keeps on going on around him. I think I don't know what happened in the situation, but the fact that his name is involved in situations like this so much, he just has to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. My bad. Yeah, he does. He has to be careful, but it's just, he has to be careful, but at the end of the day, you're going to do what you want to do. And I think I'm just hoping that well, I'll put it like this. I think the Jon Jones story, how we were talking about the Kanye documentary, I think the Jon Jones documentary,
it's going to be amazing.
Blockbuster.
It's going to be great.
Honestly, I think the same way they had how they had like that OJ trial was a series. I think Jon Jones should be a series as well. When his life story is said, it should be a life story because it's crazy to see someone at this high of a level have these type of difficulties. Now, granted, it comes with this territory, but it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and I'm just curious to see what happens when it comes to Jon.
Well, speaking of screwing up things at heavyweight, we had one of the biggest fights at heavyweight that we could have possibly seen in maybe the past decade fall apart into pieces. If you didn't know, Anthony Joshua lost to Oleksandr Usyk, and he is now the unified champ.
Which is wild. Oh, he's not the unified champ. He's not the unified champ only because the last belt that's sitting out there is between Tyson Fury.
Oh yeah, I forgot. My mistake. Yeah,
Fury and Wilder. To be honest with you, this was a surprise. I've been a fan of Usyk for a while. I've watched him before he went up to heavyweight. He was giving people problems. They had said he would be a problem down the line years ago. I wasn't sure if he would end up beating Joshua, but I think this may actually be a good thing for boxing. And I say that because when you look at Anthony Joshua, a lot of times Anthony Joshua isn't fighting the best competition. He's fighting the competition that gets him heavily paid. And the competition that gets him heavily paid is typically him fighting in the UK over there. And they just pay, like Lau would always say, like the jobbers. He's paying jobbers to get the job done, right? This time he fought actual real competition. Usyk is one of the best. He was one of the best at his division before he moved up. He fought some stiff competition. He lost. And I think this means it's better for the boxing community now, because now that Anthony Joshua is out the way, what we have left now, I believe is Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, which should be coming up soon. After that fight, we'll be able to to me, I think Tyson Fury will win that fight as well. I didn't have a chance to watch this fight, just to let the listeners know, Anthony Joshua fight, but we did catch the highlights. I think what this means for boxing is we'll have Anthony Joshua's out. Tyson Fury fights next. Let's say Fury ends up beating Wilder, right?
Okay.
Now we have Usyk versus Fury for to unify the heavyweight championship. Meanwhile, Anthony Joshua, who was running from Deontay Wilder for years, when Deontay Wilder didn't have a championship, wasn't anything but an up-and-coming fighter, he was begging Joshua, let's fight. Whatever you want, how much money you want, I just want to step in the ring. You don't have to pay me. I won't even he said, I won't take money. I just want to fight you. Joshua ran from it. After the Fury rematch, he was begging to fight Wilder. Wilder said, listen, I'm on to better things at this point. And now he's in a situation where if Tyson Fury was to win, and Wilder loses, we can end up having Joshua and Wilder fighting just for as a title eliminator, which I think for boxing wise, that makes it even more entertaining, because now you're getting a big fight between two guys who are not champions. Or even if it ends up being Joshua versus Fury, Joshua's going to have to fight for a title eliminator at some point. And when he does, depending on if there's a rematch clause against Usyk, he may end up fighting for a title eliminator against top tier boxers, which I think does better for the sport in this case. So I don't know. To me, I think this was good for boxing. I think it was bad for Joshua. I think it exposed Joshua to some extent. I didn't watch the fight in total, but I do know Lau was giving us play-by-play via text. And even he was saying he was getting dominated the whole fight. And listen, man, you go through that one time, losing that to the one, his name's slipping me at the moment. But when he lost the heavyweight championship before.
Oh, okay. You mean the Spanish man?
Yeah. I forget his name. Mexican guy. I forget his name, but
can't remember his name either.
But nonetheless, right? Listeners, comment, leave his name in the comments. But nonetheless, like, after losing that fight, you would think you would take your fights more serious. And if he was taking the fight more serious, he just lost to a better opponent, which I think this was real stiff competition, not a jobber. So I think this is great for boxing personally.
Hey, I mean, this is what happens when you don't try to, take the best fights available when you have them. So I don't feel bad for Anthony Joshua. I'm glad that he lost, if I'm being honest, just because of the sake of the sport. For me, being like a very casual watcher, I want to watch the best people fight the best people. Now, mind you, this situation with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury seems to have nothing to do with Anthony Joshua in particular. But if you had the chance to fight Deontay Wilder before and you didn't take it, that's on you. So, I mean, it is what it is. So that being said, I don't feel bad for him. I'm glad that the belt is moving forward. I don't necessarily care if he lost or not. I just like seeing the division move forward.
Nah, absolutely. And that's my thing. Like, I think seeing the division move forward, it makes it better for the sport, as well as like having Usyk as a champion. It puts another name in that hat of like other fighters that can actually help potentially grow the sport. So I don't know. I think this is great. And like you said, when you have the time, when you miss your moment, you miss your moment. You don't get a chance to pick when that moment is. Either it comes and it goes, and it looks like in Anthony Joshua's case, this is the second time he's lost the heavyweight championship, but this time against a more worthy opponent, and just in terms of totality. So, yeah, I mean, you strike when the iron's hot, and when you stop, hey man, you take that loss. You got to bite that bullet. But all I know is October 9th, I'll be looking forward to Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, and I'm quite sure Anthony Joshua will, because it's nothing to be said at this point. I'm quite sure he'll be sitting there waiting, which I wish I could give the listeners a more background of the Joshua Wilder thing, but I don't know. I think this is just good for the sport. I'm happy this has happened, man. So happy.
Do you have anything else for the listeners? Currently, listeners, I am watching the Steelers game. We're down 7 points, but we're in the second quarter. But the offense is looking like trash. Let me tell you, man, we are not doing well. Let's just say that.
Jeez, man. Jeez. Pittsburgh, man. Pittsburgh.
Hey, y'all aren't doing well either. Y'all 0-2.
Hey, man, it be like that sometimes.
Not for us.
Hey, listen. Hey, man, you put a wager up. I didn't. So
I'm just saying. You said Pittsburgh. See, this is what happens. I respond, and then it's like, hey, you called us Pittsburgh. I responded.
Hey, listen, man, Pittsburgh. Listen, man.
I'd rather be 1-1 as Pittsburgh than 0-2 as the Vikings. Just saying. Hey, you even wearing color. You're purple color today, and y'all still losing. What's up?
Yeah, you're funny.
I'm just saying.
You're funny. You're funny.
Nah, at least I'm wearing the colors of a team that won once.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
You got a terrible towel in the background, huh?
Yeah, shouts out to it. You know what's nice about that thing? It's 1-1.
Hey, that's fine. It also makes for a good blanket when you're watching the Super Bowl from the TV. So, hey, we might be sitting on the couch together. So you call it what you want, man.
We can sit on the couch together as long as the Steelers make it to the playoffs. I can't promise anything else than that. But that being said, though, my faith in the Steelers has waned. Let's just say that. We can get further into that in a later episode. I'm sure that the record will show for it.
Yeah, it's good that it's diminishing. But in terms of any other words that I have, only thing I would say is make sure you check out, I believe, Lil Bootsy.
Shit.
Because we had, how we were talking about Kanye in the documentary. Lil Bootsy had put out his own documentary, his own film where he's the star of the film.
We need to review for the listeners.
Yeah, it's called My Struggle. I believe you actually have to buy it for like $20 off of the Lil Boosie website. But shout outs to Lil Boosie for that. I will be watching it he's had his moments during his rise as a rapper. So, and of course, anybody that knows the stuff around him knows the stuff around Lil Bootsy as to why his career has stopped at one point. But I don't know. It should be interesting. we watch all these other things of these other artists. It's good to see artists actually taking the control, similar to like if you're not as big as Kanye and you can't go to Netflix. Lil Boosie did this all independently, so that means it just shows you that hey, you don't have to wait. No one's going to come save you. You can go do something yourself that you want to do, and Lil Boosie's the epitome of it. So shout outs to Lil Boosie on that. Other than that, I would say wear your mask, drink your water, stay safe, and smile every day you can, man.
All right, listeners, you've been highly advised. We'll be back. Thank you for listening. You have been highly advised.
You've been highly advised. Shasha.